It's the beginning of peak production, and the focus is now turning to stocking shelves, filling freezers. Long warm days signal the start of preservation for winter. Garlic and potatoes need curing for long-term storage. Green beans want harvesting, snapping and freezing. Tending the garden feels like a full-time job. So let me share a glimpse into harvesting and preserving our summer's bounty for the year ahead. The first job we're going to be doing this week is harvesting our potatoes. Potatoes are one of those harvests that really do bulk up our overall meals. From breakfast, dinners, the potato hash to chips, we eat a ton of potatoes. And it's really fundamental that we have a really good harvest of potatoes and that we don't lose our harvest to things like rot or making silly mistakes. So it's all hands on deck. Potatoes are harvested when the foliage goes yellow. This is 2 to 3 weeks after they flower. The ones that we're harvesting this week are our early and a few of our second early potatoes. Just before we harvested them, for about a week or so, I did completely stop watering them, which lets that skin harden up, which is very, very important. When we dig these up, we really want a super dry week where there's not very much rain. That is the best time to harvest your potatoes because that means that the actual tubers have time to toughen up, dry off. Once you've harvested them, you don't want to wash your potatoes after they've been harvested because it makes it so much more likely to rot. We don't want to introduce any more water into our potatoes than we have to because this makes it so much easier for them to be dried and cured without losing lots of them to rot. And then we're going to cure them, and I'll talk all about curing in a little while. When we were harvesting, we held back any egg size early potato, and that's because we want to sow our Christmas potatoes. July and August are really the time to get those in, and because we're sowing them outside, we do need to cover them at the end of the year with frost cloth so that no frosts are going to be damaging our developing tubers or the foliage. This is going to double our potato yield. Growing food is not just about the calories that we get, but it's about making memories. Every single opportunity I get, I bring the kids down the allotment. Andrew absolutely loves harvesting, and for better or for worse, he is excited to get his hands in the dirt. Jasmine also loves to harvest, and as she gets older, she gets more and more responsibility because growing a year's worth of food takes a whole community. You can harvest beetroot at pretty much any size, but we like to have them quite big, like tennis ball size, because I find like that's a really good size for like us to grate up into a salad, or they store better like that sort of size. But you can harvest them even when they're just sprouting. The leaves can be used as salads and things like that. Typically we harvest them about 50 to 70 days after we plant them. We harvest them when it's a particularly dry day. All you need to do is brush off some of that dirt and they're easy and ready and raring to go to store by just topping them and sticking them into bags. The next thing that we harvest are green beans, and green beans are pretty much every other day I tackle them, and I normally do that whilst Andrew is sleeping. It's kind of like my me time, and sometimes I chuck on an audio book or listen to something whilst I'm picking away. Sometimes the kids help, but most of the time it is just my me time. And I really enjoy spending time in the garden because it is my place that I'm the happiest, and it is really nice to just get down and get all of those beans out. Beans are super easy to store. All I do is I chop the tops off, and I've always chopped off the bottom. I think my nan used to do it and I've just always done it. You can actually eat the bottom of a bean. I don't know, I just always chop them off. And I just chuck them into a Ziploc bag. I then freeze them flat. We do have a whole entire freezer that's dedicated for just vegetables, but at the moment it's turned off because we've completely emptied it from last year. Some people blanch their green beans. I don't really. I don't notice any texture differences. I know that there is an enzyme that you should be cooking out of your green beans, or at least blanching out of your green beans, but I've never had that as like an issue, so I've just stuck them in there and it just makes it easy. If you put them in dry, then they don't stick together. If you do want to blanch them, then dry them off as much as you can, put them onto a sheet tray and then freeze them and put them into a bag like that. Works really well. When we've got everything back here to the house, and we do this every week. Normally Bob carries all of the trays in for me, and it's straight to be put away. I made a promise a few years ago that I wouldn't leave vegetables lying around the house because it does really wind Bob up. So I'm into the garage to put away all of the potatoes and cure them, and to sort out the garlic that we picked just a few months ago. Okay, so we're now back from the allotment, and as you can see, there's 2 crates of potatoes, which I weighed, and I will put the weight of them down there. Remember, there's only a few rows of potatoes there, and we have quite a few many left, and we've replanted out of that amount that we got. What I need to do now is, before I cure those bad boys, what we really need to do is to put this garlic away. This garlic has been curing for 4 weeks now, so it's completely dry. I'm going to show you how to store this for long-term storage now it's been cured. This is hardneck variety, so you can't plat it, but you just simply cut the tops off like that. This is obviously elephant garlic, that's why it's a little bit on the chunky side. And then what I do is I remove as many of the root as possible, and this just trims it up. Now, if you want to, where it's got a little bit of dirt on there, you can go ahead and just simply remove any of the dirty, like papery bits. That's what I do, and then it's beautifully and clean. Is it necessary? No, but it does make it look a lot cleaner. And I hate it when you take like a garlic or an onion and it produces a load of dirt on your chopping board when you've got, like, you know, peppers and stuff. You don't want that. So it's nice just to take it off here. You just don't want to remove too much of the paper, so don't go crazy. Which leaves an absolutely beautiful and clean bulb that honestly looks like it does in the supermarket. And I know the goal is to not grow supermarket food, but it does make you feel good when it looks like it's from the supermarket. Any overripe garlics will start to split. If they've split all the way down to the bulbs, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take those inside and use those first. I've got an absolute shed load of canning coming in, particularly tomato canning, and I want to have a ton of garlic for doing that. Just make sure that your garlic is completely, utterly dry before putting it away. So you do that, like when you cut the stems off, you can see that all the way in there, there's no green. It is completely, utterly dry. There's no moisture or anything in there. If you cut it and this bit isn't dry, just pop it back on and let it dry out even more. If you cut the roots and the roots aren't dry, pop it back and it will just continue to cure. So there's no rush. Go on, you can have that one. Please don't hit me with it. Okay, so this garlic has actually been nicked by probably me getting it out of the ground. So I'm just going to use that one first. This is what an elephant garlic looks like in its first year. If you grow it from a corn, it's one solid bulb, but it's absolutely fine. I'll probably use that all in a recipe, no problem. And it hasn't divided into the cloves yet, as you can see. Okay, I think this is generally the best garlic that I've got, particularly the elephant garlic looks amazing. So what I do now is really simple. All I do is divide it into basically 3 groups. So I've got one group for cracked open garlic, I've got one group for my seed garlic, which is the best garlic I've grown, and I have one group for little baby garlic, which is not worth keeping. This is not going to be sown next year, this is. Do I have to tell you why? So yeah, this is seed garlic, this is eating garlic. When it comes to garlic, I only eat the worst ones and I plant the best ones. This is the way that I actually keep garlic, and it lasts for a whole year. I've just used the last of my garlic when I was pulling this up, so it does last a very long time if you cure it right. So that leaves us 20 seed garlics, which will be far enough to replant all the garlic that we need next year. 23 of the damaged garlics that need to be used up straight away. 35 of these long store garlics, which makes us 75. This is the smallest amount of garlic that I've ever grown. Normally, I sow roughly about 160, but our garlic last year just simply wasn't good enough. So hopefully this year we've stored enough that we can go ahead and grow a lot more garlic. Okay, so now that's all nicely put away, I've got a whole entire shelf so that I can cure my potatoes. Potatoes need to be cured in the same way. It's best to do it in the dark, or as dark as possible, and to do it in a single layer. You want to do it in a single layer because once again you want that nice airflow. If you leave them into big crates like this and they're stacked on top of each other, there is a good chance that the bottom ones will rot. If you don't have the space to put them out in a single layer, that's fine too. What you need to do is you need to keep rotating the boxes. That is the best way to make sure that you have a really good amount of airflow. What you're looking for is the skin to become tougher than it was. Any kind of scrapes or bruising or anything like that will heal during the curing process. If you don't leave them so the skin toughen up, then you're very likely for them to rot before you get to use them. Oh, it's heavy. I'm just checking the potatoes over to see if they're okay. Somebody, Andrew, bit a few of the potatoes. So any of them like with big marks on them, that will probably scab over. But you have to be super tough when it comes to storing. If you see anything like that or anything like that, it's just not worth putting in full-time storage. I'm going to take those and have them for dinner. Anything like this where it's just a tiny little scuff, that's fine. It's not gonna be anything worse, but anything like that that has scabbed over, but once again I just don't trust it enough to go into full-time storage. You don't want them to be touching as much as possible. This is scab. It's been really bad this year. That's absolutely fine, it will still store. It just doesn't look very nice. Once these are dry, I will be putting them into size categories. The bigger ones will store for longer. And then you can see this one has had probably a spade go through it. This won't cure. This is better to be taken out. It is really important that you check your potatoes, even as you cure them. As you can see, we've had some spoilage, which is gross. And I'm telling you right now that I checked every single potato that we brought into this house, and this one stinks. And you've also got to make sure that you are looking out for green potatoes. Green potatoes are just potatoes that have come to the top of your pile and they've got a little bit green. They also are a little bit smushy, so you can really like feel that there's something not going on with it. Well, this one anyway.